All right. If you are with me today, that means that you are ready to start your business card and you've got your logo and logo type done. If your logo and logo type is not done, please stop this video, go back and complete that work. Then you can come back to this video. All right. So a little bit about business cards. If you haven't already, please make sure that you take a moment to click on the Google slide presentation. I'm going to go through this very briefly with you on business card design. There are some basic things that you need to keep in mind when you are creating your business card. First off, you are applying those four most basic principles of good graphic design: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So as a reminder, this slide is in there. It's in Google Classroom. Simply look at it, look over it. You need to have good contrast, so that's legibility. You need to have good repetition, so you're repeating things like certain colors and repeating fonts, repeating shapes. Proximity means how you break up that space, and we'll go over that a little bit today. And most importantly is your alignment. Not just do your different elements on the page line up, but also does your text have a certain type of alignment in your text boxes. So with contrast, it simply means using big differences so that you can clearly see the image, you can clearly see the design, you can clearly see your type and your logo type. So here's a simple example of contrast here. Nice, clean and simple. When it comes to repetition, you're going to be creating both a front and a back side of your business card. Remember that the front side of the card is simply like the cover of a book. It should be very basic. It should have a big, powerful graphic of some kind, as you can see here, and it probably should have your company name. Now, the back side of the card is where all of your image or all of your information is. So you're going to have some representation of your logo on here. There should have common repetition between the front and the back, and then you're going to have your name, your company name, and then your contact information. So here you can see another example. Here is the back of the card with all of the contact information. Here's the front of the card. They are not the same, but there's a definite similarity. There's repetition of the same fonts, the same colors, so that they look like they belong together. When it comes to alignment, any graphic that you use, any text that you use, everything needs to line up. It needs to make sense. One way to think of it is that you're working with a grid system. So you should be able to break up your business card, whether it's the front or the back, and you should be able to break it up into columns, squares, or rectangles. Why you do that is so that things line up. So you can see here that this is one text box up here, and it does have right alignment. So these three parts align. You have another text box down here. They're also aligned. They line up here. And then you actually have a third box here. And this is where proximity comes in. Proximity tells me this is one grouping, this is another grouping, and this is my third. And I know that because of the negative space they use. All right, so all three of these text boxes have right alignment. But you'll also notice along this invisible line, the pink line is not actually part of the card. It's been added there to show you that, see how these separate text boxes, they also alignment. So you have alignment within a text box, but then you also have alignment between separate elements on your page. You guys are used to this before. There's four basic types of alignment when it comes to text boxes. You have left, you have center, you have right, and you have something called justify that we're going to break down today. Know that left is pretty normal, pretty business-like, kind of simple, boring, normal, because we're used to seeing it over and over again. So depending on your business, you might want left. Center is reserved for more formal things. So like wedding invitations, and maybe if you're doing a party planning situation, you might want to do that. Right is considered very edgy, very contemporary. So if you're doing a company where you want it to seem very new, very trendy, you might try that right alignment. So again, here is your left, center, and right text box alignments. When you are creating your business card, you should not you should use the same type of alignment throughout the page. So if you use left alignment here on another text box, you should also use left alignment. So you can see these are good examples of that. Okay, you can still have some fun and play around with where you align the different text boxes to. So not all of your text boxes have to line up on the left side of your card. They can line up in different ways, the different text boxes, but each text box itself should have the same type of alignment. When it comes to proximity, what it's talking about is you have to break your information up into groups. And depending on how much information you have on your business card, you may or may not have a lot of different groups. So you could have an area up here, you could have more information up here. It is up to you what you want to put on your business card. Some of you may have one means of contact, some of you might have several. It's simply up to you. Now, when it comes to means of contact, what that means is different ways that a client or a customer could get a hold of you. So examples of that would be a website. It could be a phone number. It also could be email. It could also be social media. So it could be your Facebook or Twitter handle. It could be your Instagram. Different ways that you could get a hold of somebody. Okay, so you can kind of see it here. There's different groupings. She's got her company name. She has her actual name on there. And if you're using a card that has a company name that's different than your own, you do need to put your name. So for instance, I had Shore Designs. Underneath it, I would put Heather Shore so that they know my actual name. And then there's two other groupings here. One where it actually has their address, a phone number, and an email. Again, in today's tech literate world, you do not have to have multiple means of contact. It used to be that way, not anymore. You can have one mean of contact. So for instance, on my business card, it simply has my website. From my website, there's multiple different ways that they can get a hold of me. My biggest piece of advice is keep in your mind the whole time, I have to have good contrast, I have to have good repetition, proximity, and alignment throughout this process with my business card. So here's some things to think about as you're designing your space. Number one, you have a very, very small amount of space to work on. Don't cram this thing. You do not need to put every single way that somebody can contact you. Put 1, 2, maybe up to 3, but do not put more than 3 means of contact because there's just no way you would be able to organize that much visual information on a 2 by 3 inch square. It's just not possible. Also, you really want to avoid simply putting things in the corner. This is not a good example of a business card design. What it has is what I call spread it out disease, where they have all this information. And instead of grouping things together in groupings that make sense, they just kind of spread it out. Don't put things in all 4 corners. Now, it's okay to put something in 1 or 2, maybe up to 3 corners, but just don't put everything in the corner in an attempt to fill the space. Your card needs to fit your business. You've already gone through the personality, the branding of your company. So keep those 2 words in mind. So if your company was about glamour and elegance, keep that in mind when you're picking everything else. You should have already had your colors picked and you even have your shapes picked. So keep that consistent with your card. In other words, it should look like your logo. Be careful when using more than 2 types of font. And in fact, for this, I'm going to recommend that you use no more than 3. You should have the font that you use for your logo type show up somewhere in this card. You might have a contrasting one and then a third one, but remember to balance those. If you struggle creating contrasting type relationships, stick with just 2. It's a little bit easier to make sure that all your fonts are contrasting if you're only using 2 different types versus 3. So limit your types of font. Font size is important. Don't use type 12. Type 12 is vague. What that means is it's not really a main headline font size and it's also not a copy font size. Go big or go small. So for your copy, that means the contact information, your name, bits and pieces that aren't as important. Make sure that you're using size 8 or 10 point for your font. For your headlines, they should be much bigger. They might be upwards of 20 points to get that across that this is the main content. Okay? Make sure that everything is lined up to something else. Remember, alignment is super important in this. So not just your text box alignment, but everything, the graphic elements, the lines, the shapes, everything you use, the imagery, it all has to line up with something else. If you can't create an invisible line, then you don't have good alignment. Punctuation, this is super important. Just some basic things because you don't have a lot of space. Every little dot, every little dash, it all adds extra clutter. So here's what you need to know is if you have the words boulevard or street, spell those out instead of using periods. If you are having if you're going to be putting a phone number in there, instead of using the hyphen between the numbers, use a dot instead, uses less space. And it's also not necessary to write the word phone, fax, or website next to those things. Instead, you can use something as simple as here, where you can put P for phone, F for fax, W for website, or you could put the icons. You can literally go onto the internet and if you want to copy and paste Image trace the Facebook logo, that can be shrunken down very, very small to put next to your Facebook handle or Twitter. You can use those elements instead rather than writing out the words phone, fax, and website. With your format means does your card go horizontal, side to side, or up and down? You can do either way. You can have your card going up and down versus side to side. You can even do the front going up and down and the back going side to side. That's totally up to you. You can even be a little bit more creative and go diagonal, but be careful, make sure that that diagonal fits the feel of your company. Stick with one type of alignment. I already said this before, make sure your text box have one type of alignment. Don't switch back and forth between left, right, and center. And then the last thing here is let your logo guide your design. Your logo should show up in some shape or form on both the front and the backs of your cards. You might find that you break up parts of it, you reuse parts of it, have some fun with your logo, and really let your logo drive your entire business card design. Okay, so here we go. So we're gonna open up our lesson. That's how we're gonna start. The first thing I would do today is go ahead and reopen up your logo template because your logo project, because you're going to need that at some point in time today. All right, let's go to File, Open. We're going to go navigate to the Courses, Art, Computer Graphic Lessons folder, Illustrator Lessons folder, and in here there should be a file called Alignment Lesson, and let's open that. All right, this is going to be really fast, believe it or not, and then we're going to get to your business card template. So what you see here are 6 different text boxes. I'm going to show you how to change the alignment. It's actually quite simple. Let's start by first clicking on the first box. If you do not have this option up here, you will have to open up the type alignment panel, and that's not hard. So let's all do that now. Let's go to Window. You're going to go all the way down to the bottom where it says Type, and you're going to go to Paragraph. And it should look like this. Now this is going to go real fast. So if we click on the first one, you're going to notice that the left alignment is highlighted. Let's click to the one below it. We're going to click on Center. Notice when you hit Center, it centers everything. I'm going to click on the bottom one. If I click Right, it's going to right align. So you can kind of see the differences there. All right, with this last grouping here, I'm going to show you Justify. So Justify are these options over here. And we're just going to play around with these for a second. So if I click on Justify Left, what this means is it's going to space out. So Justify means to space from left to right. So it's going to space each line out so that they line up on both the left and the right. But why it's Justify Left is because it's going to take whatever that last line is and it's going to shift it to the left, center, or right. So this is Justify Left. I'm going to stay on the same text box. If I click Justify Center, notice these lines don't change, and then it centers. And then if I click on Justify Right, notice it stays justified, and it clicks to the right. The last one is the kind of funky one. So if I click on Justify All Lines, it's going to justify every single line. And as you can see, what it does to justify that last line, because there's only one word there, it's going to space out those letters. So Justify All does not work very often. You have to have almost an exact number of words on that bottom line for Justify All to look correct. All right, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to actually delete the very bottom box. So let's go ahead and do that. And if you haven't done this, if you haven't set this to left, center, right, Justify All, please do that now. Stop the video and do that now. All right, the last thing I want to show you is text box. This is super fast lesson here. I want you to notice that with the text box, you can change the shape and size of your text box. And you might be wondering, well, what's the deal with the text box anyways? We've just been clicking with our type tool. Yes, but this is the first time that you might be having a block of type, and this is important to know. When you create a text box, you're creating parameters through which that text can only go in. So it has to flow in a certain space, and some of you might want that for your business card. So we're going to try that now. So if you haven't played around with changing the shape and size of the text box, and I'm just doing that with my direct selection tool, or with my selection tool, try that now. Okay, so now we're going to create our own text box. I want you to grab the regular type tool, and we're simply going to come into this empty space, and I want you to click and drag. Notice you get a blue box here, and you've got a blinking cursor. What I've done there is I've set the parameters, and I've said that my text cannot go outside of this box. So go ahead and try that and click and type, and notice because whatever my last alignment was on, that's what it's going to give me. Okay, so I simply want you to click and drag, and you can type some gibberish in there. All right, almost done, guys. This was super fast, super easy. So the last thing that we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to turn your alignment on, your smart guides for alignment. So we're going to have to go up to View, and we're going to go to Rulers. We're going to go Show Rulers. It's going to put these things up on the top and on the left-hand side. They're rulers for your document, and this is going to be important when you're trying to align elements on your business card page. To put a guideline up, a visible guideline, grab your selection tool. And if you want to do a horizontal guideline to make sure that boxes and things line up, you're going to click and you're going to hold. So all I do is click on my ruler up here, and I'm clicking and dragging, and now I've got this invisible line. If I click on the ruler to the left and drag, I've now got an invisible line. I would like you to draw 2 guidelines, one to make sure that your 2 text boxes up top are aligned, and one to make sure your text boxes on the left are aligned. And then go to File, Save, or Save As, and we're going to save this in your Print Shop folder. And I want you to call it Alignment Lesson. Okay, that was pretty much it, guys. We've learned a lot with the type tool already. So this was a super quick, super fast lesson. Next thing we're going to do here is we're going to open up the template for the business card. So we're going to go to File, Open. We're going to go back to the Courses folder. We're going to go to Art. We're going to go to Computer Graphic Lessons, and there should be a folder in here called Print Shop Templates. You want the business card template. Now there's 2 different ones in here, and you're just going to have to open them up. When you open it, it gives you the correct size for your business cards for the front and the back. Okay. Note that this dotted dash line, that's not really there. That will get deleted before we send it away for printing. What that is that's a text margin. It means that any text should not go past this. It's a safety line that I've put in here so that your text doesn't get too close. So if we send it for printing, your text doesn't accidentally get cut off. So again, no text past this dotted line. And you're pretty much ready to go from here. So with this template open, when you have one, just save this in your projects folder as business card. But you might be wondering, well, how do I start manipulating this business card? Well, the first thing is you're probably going to want to change the color. You're probably not going to want gray. You might want whatever color fits with your logo. You can pick that, okay? The next thing is, how do you get your logo on there? So to do that, you need to have your logo file up, and you simply need to click, select your logo, grab your selection tool, and drag it onto your business card, and there's your logo. And then I would make sure I group it. The same thing with your logo type. If you want to grab your logo type, click and drag that so it's on your card. And then you're off and running, and you can design as much as you want. So get your business card template set up, save it in your projects folder, and then I want you to pause the video. I want you to stop on that today, and I want you to spend whatever time you have left looking back either at the Google Slides images of all the examples of business cards that I gave you, or going online and looking at some examples of business cards before you just start jumping into this thing. But other than that, that's pretty much it. We're finishing up this unit on branding. It's the last thing we've got to do here. Have some fun. You'll have at least 2 to 3 days to work on your business card. Make sure that you're really experimenting and you're letting your logo guide your card. Good job.